Welcome to Road to Recovery.
Hey everybody, welcome to Road to Recovery, Advocacy and Insights for Trucking Accidents with Sagi Shaked. I'm Matt Sky. Sagi is founder of Shaked Law Personal Injury Lawyers and is ranked as one of the top 100 trial lawyers in the United States by the American Trial Lawyers Association. With a wealth of experience in personal injury, lawful death, and complex litigation cases, he passionately advocates for victims and has recovered multi-million-dollar settlements in damages for his clients. Sagi, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Let's jump in. So what interested you in practicing personal injury law and specifically taking on a serious and oftentimes catastrophic trucking accident cases?
Yeah, so more than 20 years ago, I would say more, like 25 years ago, two family members were one was seriously hurt in a collision and another one unfortunately died in a collision. And so after that, I kind of gravitated and said, hey, we got to make the roadways safer. And there's a way to do that. There's a mechanism to do that. And that's what these cases are. Yes, they do get clients money, but at the same time, they also let trucking companies know you can't drive like that. You can't drive fatigued on the road because it's dangerous to everybody on the road, whether it's pedestrians we've had people where they were sitting at bus stops and get smashed by an 18-wheeler, just sitting there. And then we've had people on motorcycles and vehicles. You hear it all the time.
Why do you think there's a growing number of trucking accident cases, both in Florida and potentially nationwide? And is there a number one cause?
Yeah, so the number one cause, I would say, for trucking collisions is fatigue. And we see this in all our cases. It seems like most of the drivers are fatigued, either because the trucking company is overworking them or the drivers want to get as many hours as possible on the road. Another reason is sometimes there's a shortage of drivers. And so the trucking companies are forcing their drivers to be on the road way too long because there are rules and regulations that the federal government passed and made sure that trucking companies have to abide by these rules. And the reason why we have these rules is because of fatigue, because of the problem that we have nationwide, an epidemic problem with fatigued truck drivers. I'm not saying all truck drivers have fatigue, but it seems like the ones that get into collisions that change families' lives and hurt people are the ones that are fatigued and driving way too much, not following the hours of service that they have to follow. And that's kind of the problems that we're having. So fatigue would be the number one cause of crashes throughout Florida and the United States.
What are the key aspects that make trucking accident cases different from other passenger vehicle accidents we hear about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of times people think that every case is the same, whether it's a car accident case or a motorcycle case or a truck accident case. So truck accident cases are completely different because they are regulated by the federal government. So the federal government passed what's called the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. And those regulations is what every truck driver has to follow. So if it's a truck weighing more than 10,000 pounds, they have to follow those laws. So every state passed a law that's similar to the federal law. So sometimes you see trucks that only do what's called intrastate. Intrastate is within the state, and then interstate is throughout the United States. So if they're traveling interstate, they have to follow the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. And the safety regulations are administered by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So the federal government has over 1,000 employees that work for the FMCSA, which is the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. And they basically enforce the laws and ensure. The problem is they're understaffed when it comes to the amount of trucks that are on the road. So that's why you have lawyers like me who specialize and focus just on trucking accidents. And when you know the law, you have to know the regulations. The regulations, they're huge. It's a huge book. It's like the tax code. But if you study it and you learn it, it's different when you're litigating one of these cases. You have to know all those regulations because I can guarantee you most of the truck drivers do not know, especially the ones that cause collisions.
How often is it usually the trucker's fault versus the company's fault in terms of pressuring a driver to go the extra mile when perhaps they are too fatigued?
So We've seen it both ways. Sometimes it's the trucking company pushing their drivers to get the load wherever they need to get. And then sometimes it's the driver where they fudge their hours of service, or they're supposed to drive no more than 14 hours in a row, and then they have to have breaks. So they can't drive more than 14 consecutive hours. Once they go 10 straight, they have to stop. So there's different rules in place. So sometimes, again, the drivers, it used to be before the age of computers or before they started logging their hours online, they would have handwritten books, and the drivers would keep 3 sets of books. One set of books to show their boss or their trucking company, another set of books to show the regulators if they ever got pulled over. And then the third set of books was their own books to keep track of how many hours they're actually doing so they can get reimbursed. And we've had that happen in cases. So it really depends. Every situation is different. We see sometimes more the trucking company, and then on other times you see the drivers. And that's where it becomes a problem, when they're trying to do too much and not follow the required rules to be on the road.
Where does the liability tend to land? Is it with the trucker or is it with the company itself?
So in reference to liability, the trucking company is responsible for its drivers. Sort of, Matt, if you lend me your car and I drive your car and cause a crash, then you're responsible just like I'm responsible because you lent me this dangerous instrument. In trucking cases, the trucking company would be at fault, but we have a couple of different potential companies to pursue. So you would have the trucking company as your one angle, the truck driver, another angle, potentially the shipping company, if they're putting the pressure on the trucking company to deliver by a certain time. Sometimes you have a broker, which is an agent, and the broker, sometimes they get companies that have no experience or someone that just applied for a license with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration and get their DOT license. That's the Department of Transportation license. And then they get a motor carrier number. The motor carrier number allows them to drive on the roadways. So sometimes you have drivers who've been in multiple accidents, yet the companies continue to hire them because either there's a shortfall of drivers or they just need to get someone on the road, and they don't care. They don't do their due diligence, and then you have families getting destroyed and people's lives changing forever. So it really depends on a case-by-case basis.
Interesting. Let's jump a little bit into Florida's new statute of limitation law regarding personal injury cases. This includes semi-trucks and other large commercial vehicles. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so on March 24th, 2023, the Florida legislature passed a widespread tort reform. One of the items on that bill, which the governor signed into law on the 24th of March of 2023, is the new statute of limitations. So prior to, and that's before March 24th of 2023, the statute of limitations for negligence cases or for trucking cases was 4 years. After, if the crash occurred after March 24th of 2023, then you have a new statute of limitations, which is 2 years. Now, to be safe, if your crash occurred on March 24th, 2023, I would file it within 2 years. Don't wait the 4 years. You don't want to be the test case that goes up on appeal. So any case before March 24th of 2023 is a 4-year statute of limitations. Any case after March 24th, 2023 is a 2-year statute of limitations. And so that statute of limitations basically says that if you don't file the lawsuit within that time period, wherever you fall, you will forever waive your rights. So if you have an attorney that's not moving their case, or it's been close to 2 years, you need to find out what's going on, because it shouldn't take that long to get the lawsuit filed. Now, this is strictly for Florida. Every state is different. Tennessee, for example, has a 1-year statute of limitations. California has a 2-year statute of limitations. Every state is different. So make sure you check with your state to know what the statute of limitations is.
Now, we brushed on this just a little bit, but can you walk me through the typical trying process for an accident case in Florida?
So when we deal with trucking cases, it's extremely important. As soon as the crash occurs, whether you or your family can get in touch with a trucking accident lawyer. And the reason why is when I did defense work, so before I came on and changed to the good side, which is representing people, I used to represent truck companies and insurance companies. And what they have is a team in place. As soon as a crash happens, the first phone call that the truck driver makes is to the company, letting them know that there's been a crash, and they send out their team. Their team involves an accident reconstruction expert, a photographer, a human factors expert. They're doing their whole thing to protect their money. They go out there right away. They send out the trucking expert, the risk management department, the accident reconstruction expert, the human factors expert, and a professional photographer and videographer to record the scene. And it's not recording the scene to the benefit of the person that was injured or family that's been destroyed. It's to the benefit of the trucking company. So when we get a call, it's our duty to get our team out there because we have a team in place ready to roll because we see so many of these crashes happen to preserve evidence because the insurance company is going to preserve evidence that's favorable to them. It's our job to preserve evidence, the real evidence that's favorable not only to the case, but also really to look at the case favorably for both sides. But we want to make sure we're locking down the evidence that's favorable to our side because the insurance company is not going to do that for you. So number one is getting your team out there, reconstruction expert, human factors expert, get the photographer out there, get the videographer out there. I usually like to go to the scene or one of the attorneys in the office will go to the scene as well. We want to see. Sometimes you have a case where it involves a construction company improperly putting out the construction signs and causing a crash. Or sometimes you can go to the scene and you'll see a supermarket or a gas station that has cameras and you can pick up the crash from those cameras. So you want to go speak to those stores or different, sometimes it's a home, wherever it is, you want to get as much evidence as possible. So the more time that goes by, the worse it is for our client, the better it is for the insurance company because evidence does disappear. So once the crash occurs, after we get out to the scene, we like to meet with the client. Usually the clients are in the hospital. We'd like to meet with them, talk to them. We want the clients and their family taking pictures while at the hospital, taking videos so we can preserve that information later on because a picture speaks 1,000 words, a video speaks 10,000 words. And it just helps later on the clients remember what they went through. And plus, it shows what they went through. After they are discharged from the hospital, then they start medical treatment with whatever doctors the hospital recommended or their doctors are recommending. In the meantime, we're preserving the evidence. We're sending out our preservation letters to the trucking company because they only have to maintain those hours of service, which is the hours of service is the regulations that require the trucking companies to maintain the hours that the truck driver does. They only have to maintain it for 6 months. A lot of times the truck drivers, if the attorney gets involved too late or doesn't request to preserve the information, those hours are gone because they don't have to preserve it by law more than 6 months. So that's gone. Then you have the employment file. The employment file, again, they only retain it for 6 months after they discharge the person. So if they discharge this driver for whatever reason, they're not going to have that employment file anymore. So it's our job to make sure that employment file is preserved. We want to know, what did the trucking company do when they hired this driver? I mean, we had one trucking company in a case where they found their driver on Craigslist. That's how they found their driver, not from a school. So you really don't know that information until you get that file and figure out, how do they find this driver? What qualifications does this driver have? How many times have they driven before? Have they ever had DUIs? How many speeding tickets have they had over the course of time? Has their license been suspended? There's so many different questions that we want to know because it seems like the bulk of our cases, the trucking cases that we handle, almost everyone turns into punitive damages because these trucking companies do not follow the law. They don't follow those regulations, which are federal laws that they have to follow. And as a result, you get people whose lives have been tragically changed. I mean, we've had cases where people have died from trucking accidents, have become complete quadriplegics, paralyzed completely from the waist down, some of them from the neck down. So these cases can be prevented if the trucking companies follow the law and enforced the regulations. The problem is they're not doing that. So we're the ones that have to make sure they do that.
Yeah, one can imagine how devastating these accidents are. How common is it for insurance companies to deny or offer less than optimal settlements to your clients? And how do you deal with that as a lawyer?
Yeah, so insurance companies always try to take advantage of situations. They're never coming forward and doing the right thing. If they did the right thing, you wouldn't need a personal injury lawyer or a board certified civil trial lawyer. So if they did the right thing, then lawyers would be out of business, but they don't. And that's the reason why they deny claims. They try to take advantage of someone if the person is unrepresented, or sometimes if the person is represented, if they know that there's a lawyer that doesn't really understand trucking, doesn't really understand the regulations, hasn't been in trial, hasn't been tested, insurance companies will for sure take advantage of them. And I know that firsthand because, again, I used to be a defense lawyer. I used to represent defendants and insurance companies. And basically, as soon as when I was doing defense, you'd get the file from the insurance company. Because first you start off opening a claim. And then once the claim gets to a point, the insurance adjuster will send it to the defense lawyer. And that's when we used to get the files when I was doing defense work. And we'd find out who the lawyer was. And once you find out the lawyer, you're doing your research. You're finding out, has this lawyer ever tried a case? Has this lawyer ever gotten good results in trial? And if that's not the case, there's a whole write-up done on the lawyer, especially if it's a good lawyer and if it's a bad lawyer or a medium lawyer. They know everything about every lawyer, who's trying cases, who's not. And you better believe it, that's reflective of how a person gets a result, whether they're settling their case for fair money or they're not settling their case for fair money. And some lawyers, the insurance companies take advantage of. So if they try that on us, for example, we've been in court. We've gotten the 7-figure verdicts, the 8-figure verdicts. We have a 9-figure settlement. So we know what to do. So if they try that, we file the lawsuit and we'll prepare the case for trial. From the moment we get the case, we're assuming the insurance company is going to either deny or lowball us because that's what they do. I mean, I was on the other side. I know exactly what they do. So when they try to lowball us, we file a lawsuit and we get ready for trial and we go full speed ahead. We don't look back. We don't give them time. We just keep putting the pressure on. And that's how cases either get settled or go to trial.
What are the biggest challenges your clients face during this process?
Yeah, so some of the challenges that clients face, number one is medical treatment, getting back to work. Sometimes they can't get work at all. Their lives have been completely demolished from this, where, again, some of them are paralyzed or some of them have lost their lives or some have gone through so many surgeries that they can't get back to work. It's not the same. Now they have a challenge. How do they have income coming in? How do they support their family? How do they support themselves? And so that's a huge challenge for all our clients. And then the insurance companies know this, so they try to take advantage of that by, throwing lowball offers when clients need the money most. And that's when you have an attorney like me where if need be, we will set them up with certain companies that will help them out until we can get a fair settlement for them. And we don't have to take the lowball offer. So I guess the number one challenge for most clients is how do they get back on their feet after their lives have been completely destroyed from a trucking company's negligence? And the other challenge would be is finding doctors who are willing to treat individuals who've been involved in crashes, because sometimes doctors don't want to be involved because you have defense lawyers who will take depositions and really harass the doctors. And they just want to treat patients and move on. But it's the insurance company and defense lawyers who will make the doctors' lives difficult. So that's another challenge that clients face and we face as well.
So as we wrap up, what would you say sets you apart from other trucking accident attorneys in Florida?
In terms of setting myself apart or the firm apart, so we have one of the largest, we'll start off with this, one of the largest settlements in the country for a single individual. That's a settlement in excess of 9 figures. That's over 100 million. I can't say the specific number because there's a confidentiality clause involved. Additionally, I am a double board certified civil trial lawyer. I'm board certified by the Florida Bar in civil trial law, and I'm board certified by the National Board of Trial Advocates. So what does that mean when you're board certified? Most lawyers will tell you they know what they're doing. They've been in court, but have they really been in court? Are they board certified? Just like you wouldn't go to a doctor that's not board certified. Why would you go to a lawyer that's not board certified? Insurance companies, again, they keep tab on everybody. So if your lawyer is just a desk, I call them desk adjusters. They'll just sit behind a desk and try to settle cases all day long. That's not what we do. We'll sit there and, we'll try to settle, but if it doesn't settle for the fair number, we'll file a lawsuit. Unfortunately for clients, they're going to lawyers that don't try cases and they're not getting the fair settlement that they should. So being double board certified helps us or helps me get better results for the clients. We do try cases, we go to trials a lot, and that's for the benefit of future clients as well. It gets the benefit for the current client, but also for future clients. So it's over 100 years of experience at the law firm. The attorneys we have are skilled at what they do. We focus on trucking cases, and my board certification and past results, I believe, sets us apart from other law firms.
I think it's a great point to wrap up on. Everybody, thanks so much for tuning in to Road to Recovery with Sagi Shaked. For more information or to connect with Sagi, visit shakedlaw.com. Sagi, thanks for your time today.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.